those pictures, that not only is every weapon clearly identified with a code, not only is every piece of ammunition clearly identified, but that at not that great a cost, we have the technological capability to track every single weapon and piece of ammunition. What we lack is the political will to demand that their manufacturers do that.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to, first of all, congratulate Andrew and Jorgen. I think you've just brought the general picture in depth of what happens on ground. As far as my country, DRC, is concerned, what you just said about armed embargo is very important, because DRC was under embargo in 1992, but then it gave a loophole for the small arms, and right 3 years later, the war just flashed on DRC, and within 2 years, it created what we call the First African World War. And as we speak now, there are over 70 armed groups everywhere, and they got weapons from the government and from the neighboring countries, and you don't know what really happens. You can't imagine the government sending the troops in front, and then at a certain time they say, please go back, leave your arms. I wept when I talked to the governor of North Carolina personally. He's a young fellow, he told me, go please. Then he tells me, you people speak French, you know what you call cheval de Troie. The enemy is like...
The toy of horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
He just told me like that. You can't imagine. You send your troops ahead, and then I said to them, they said, stop, back, and then the population moving left, right, rapes happening, a whole sort of maneuvering, you don't know what is going on. Until people, it's beyond control. This has been happening for years. I just wanted to congratulate you.
Thank you.
It's a comment more. I'll turn to the room. I'm very surprised that nobody has mentioned thus far that on the 2nd of April at the United Nations, an international legally binding treaty was adopted to regulate arms trade, the Arms Trade Treaty, and it's going to be signed officially by within 52 states the day after, in 3 days, on Monday. I mean, this is nothing. The arms, and
We should just say that we mentioned it last night.
Do you think it's conceivable to regulate the arms trade? Well, we've been working on that for 17 years with all sorts of campaign organizations, and got there. We just got there, and I would hope that it's not going to stay a piece of paper. And it is going to stay a piece of paper unless we also commit to pressurize our governments, and not our arms trade companies, but our governments, and keep them accountable. In fact, listening here now, I think the German government is laughing in its fist, saying, let them go after Hitler and Koch. Because it's actually Germany who is bound by a whole set of very sophisticated European rules. The dual-use regulation, which is legally binding, and then there's a common position on military exports, is very explicit. Andrew yesterday called that the platinum standard of arms export control. Let's not deny it. But rather than present your hot bread in the neck of Heckler and Koch, please, is the German government that needs to be held accountable, because they emit export licenses to companies such as Heckler and Koch. So please don't spill your breath.
I would like to give an answer to this demand. Yes, my own organization, IPPW, has also worked and campaigned in favor of this ATT, as we call it, and we will actually have a workshop on this on Saturday, tomorrow. I just want to also outline some of the other sides, the backside of it. The ATT for me is a big achievement. It's an achievement of civilization, I would call it. Because before somebody from Amnesty International, I think, said the trade in bananas was more regulated than the trade of weapons. So it is an achievement. But on the other hand, let me quote from the first page of that treaty. It says, recognizing the legitimate commercial interest of the arms trade. If we have listened to what Andrew Feinstein said to us yesterday and today, we know what that means. And that's part of this treaty. The German foreign minister issued a press release last week saying that they are going to sign it on Monday. In the same press release, he wrote that, by the way, we would have wished stronger rules. That's very easy for him to say, because the actual German rules in place for the export of weapons are stronger than the ones which are in that ATT. And yes, under these rules, Germany is number 3 of weapons export. So this gives us an idea of what that treaty will actually do, I'm afraid to say. I think that's a lot of hypocrisy. And I said that today in the interview as well, that I was asked what is my request to our politicians. I said, they should please stop this hypocrisy and speak up freely. I think that the German government was partying just as much as we were when this treaty was agreed on. And I would go a step further. I think they were partying in Oberndorf as well. They were partying with this ATT, but for them it doesn't mean any change at all. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea to have an ATT. I think just the point I want to make is that this is a start, it's a weak start. You said it yesterday. But we as civilization, we cannot lay back now and say, oh great, now we've got an ATT. We need to press further. We need to press our government, our politicians, that this may be a start, but we need to develop this further until we have rules that really work. So this one is so weak, I'm afraid, that it's not going to save lives, as somebody said.
I think it's an historical weak achievement.
Stand up.
Yes. If you draw a picture, you would sign a Swiss cheese with a lot of holes. A lot of holes. So that's the task for the next years, to fill the holes. But what you can say at that moment, Germany is number 3, as you told. But none of the exports will be stopped by this ATT. None. 98% are legal. So it's a huge task for us to fill the holes in the next year. At that time, in my opinion, it's a shame what we are doing here in Germany by exporting all the weapons all around the world. And this is the reason the German government says it's a wonderful ATT treaty, because every export can go. So that's a shame.
This was one further word on that. I think that the ATT is symbolically extremely important for the reasons that I mentioned. I mean, this is something that at least there is an acknowledgement to create some sort of international regulatory framework. I think also from the perspective of activism, it acts as a very useful mobilizing point. And now that you have the treaty, which I agree is extremely weak, on the issues that I'm directly concerned with, it is woefully weak. But the reality is that it does provide a mobilizing or organizing focus within countries that's very important. The problem we have is that we do have regulation of the arms trade. So even by far the best of them in the world, which is the EU common position, isn't really properly enforced. It's violated all the time. I mean, for the book, and I quote the interview in the book, I interviewed the political head of the Swedish Export Authority, and I asked him about a very specific deal that violated a whole lot of articles of the EU common position. And he basically said to me, and thank goodness there were a number of other peace activists with me, otherwise I would have thought that I misheard him. He said to me, oh, well, you know, that article and that article, they're very complicated to implement, so on some deals we just ignore them. And he said this. And he knew that I was there to interview him because I'm writing a book. And so the biggest problem we have, and it'll apply to the ATT as well, is that there has to be real political will to implement the regulatory frameworks that are created. And that's what we profoundly lack at the moment. And my only concern, and I think that we as activists need to be very alert to this, is that if governments start using the ATT, the common position, to say, no, everything we do is fine. Here are all these regulations. Then what we're doing is we're allowing these things to give a stamp of approval to this status quo. And we can't afford that. But let us use any legal mechanisms that arise from these frameworks to challenge our governments, to challenge our companies. Because where I would differ slightly with Anne is that we've got to challenge the governments in the first instance, but we have to challenge the companies and the individuals as well, both through exposure, but also hopefully in the future through legal mechanisms.
I love the fact we always Please.
We have elections next fall, and what do you think? It's a time when the politicians listen to people like us. And what do you think would be good questions to ask them when they give the lectures or to ask our MPs?
Okay. Jasmine Galate was turning up her hand in the view.
It's actually in relation to the ADT discussion. You see, it's a living document. You know, it's not cast in stone. So there's, there's a space for improvement. So I wanted to ask Andrew if he has concrete language, for us campaigners, in regards to improvement of the treaty text.
Take 3 more questions and then we answer. 1, 2, 3.
And also, my question also relates to the ATT. What you said before, Andrew, about the World Trade, or perhaps it was you, the World Trade Organization banning the use of offsets. No, you said in all areas of trade except for defence. What exactly do you mean by offsets? Can you explain what that is?
Sure.
What is about the ATT? I remember how glad we were at the UN conference 1995, at the Women's UN conference in Beijing, for the Beijing platform. There was written in it that arms trade is to be shortened and to give the money for women and development and so on, and the effect was that it grow, that arms trade grow and development. We have we always have to lobby again. We know with UN what we have to do. My question is only to clarify. As 75 or 3/3 of the small arms are in the hands of private owners, we are speaking about the other all the time. We are speaking with all these diagrams and so on. We are speaking about the other 25%. It's only to clarify.
I just wanted to tell you about, I was in a forum in Stuttgart some weeks ago, and there was one peace researcher and Andreas and and the politicians and also one from the industry, the arms industry, a lobbyist from the arms industry, and he told me that. Well, we talked about what could we do against arms trade and to regulate it in something, and he said, as long as we have a free market system, you cannot forbid us to sell arms and to produce and sell arms. That was the statement.